recording. Okay, so welcome. We are on chapter 8, section 4 of A Course in Miracles, the gift of freedom. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and begin reading as soon as this pops out of the way here. Okay. The gift of freedom. If God's will for you is complete peace and joy, unless you experience only this, you must be refusing to acknowledge his will. His will does not vacillate, being changeless forever. When you are not at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are in him. Yet he is all, in all. His peace is complete, and you must be included in it. His laws govern you because they govern everything. You cannot exempt yourself from his laws, although you can disobey them. Yet if you do, and only if you do, you will feel lonely and helpless because you are denying yourself everything. I am come as a light into a world that does deny itself everything. It does this simply by dissociating itself from everything. It is therefore an illusion of isolation, maintained by fear of the same loneliness that is its illusion. I said that I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. That is why I am the light of the world. If I am with you in the loneliness of the world, the loneliness is gone. You cannot maintain the illusion of loneliness if you are not alone. My purpose then is still to overcome the world. I do not attack it, but my light must dispel it because of what it is. Light does not attack darkness, but it does shine it away. If my light goes with you everywhere, you shine it away with me. The light becomes ours. And you cannot abide in darkness any more than darkness can abide wherever you go. The remembrance of me is the remembrance of yourself and of him who sent me to you. You were in darkness until God's will was done completely by any part of the sonship. When this was done, it was perfectly accomplished by all. How else could it be perfectly accomplished? My mission was simply to unite the will of the sonship with the will of the Father by being aware of the Father's will myself. This is the awareness I came to give you, and your problem in accepting it is the problem of this world. Dispelling it is salvation, and in this sense, I am the salvation of the world. The world must therefore despise and reject me because the world is the belief that love is impossible. If you will accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world and accepting God. My will is his, and your decision to hear me is the decision to hear his voice and abide in his will. As God sent me to you, so will I send you to others. And I will go to see them with you, so we can teach them peace and union. Do you not think the world needs peace as much as you do? Do you not want to give it to the world as much as you want to receive it? For unless you do, you will not receive it. If you want to have it of me, you must give it. Healing does not come from anyone else. You must accept guidance from within. The guidance must be what you want, or it will be meaningless to you. That is why healing is a collaborative venture. I can tell you what to do, but you must collaborate by believing that I know what you should do. Only then will your mind choose to follow me. Without this choice, you could not be healed because you would have decided against healing. And this rejection of my decision for you makes healing impossible. Healing reflects our joint will. This is obvious when you consider what healing is for. Healing is the way in which the separation is overcome. Separation is overcome by union. It cannot be overcome by separating. The decision to unite must be unequivocal, or the mind itself is divided and not whole. Your mind is the means by which you determine your own condition, because mind is the mechanism of decision. It is the power by which you separate or join and experience pain or joy accordingly. My decision cannot overcome yours because yours is as powerful as mine. If it were not so, the sons of God would be unequal. All things are possible through our joint decision, but mine alone cannot help you. Your will is as free as mine, and God himself would not go against it. I cannot will what God does not will. I can offer my strength to make yours invincible, but I cannot oppose your decision without competing with it and thereby violating God's will for you. Nothing God created can oppose your decision, as nothing God created can oppose his will. God gave your will its power, which I can only acknowledge in honor of his. If you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind. I can teach you, but only you can choose to listen to my teaching. How else can it be if God's kingdom is freedom? Freedom cannot be learned by tyranny of any kind, and the perfect equality of all God's sons cannot be recognized through the dominion of one mind over another. God's sons are equal in will, all being the will of their Father. This is the only lesson I came to teach. If your will were not mine, it would not be our Father's. This would mean you have imprisoned yours and have not let it be free. Of yourself, you can do nothing, because of yourself, you are nothing. I am nothing without the Father, and you are nothing without me, because by denying the Father, you deny yourself. I will always remember you, and in my remembrance of you lies your remembrance of yourself. In our remembrance of each other lies our remembrance of God, and in this remembrance lies your freedom, because your freedom is in him. Join then with me in praise of him and you whom he created. This is our gift of gratitude to him, which he will share with all his creations, to whom he gives equally whatever is acceptable to him. Because it is acceptable to him, it is the gift of freedom, which is his will for all his sons. By offering freedom, you will be free. Freedom is the only gift you can offer to God's sons, being an acknowledgement of what they are and what he is. Freedom is creation, because it is love. Whom you seek to imprison, you do not love. Therefore, when you seek to imprison anyone, including yourself, you do not love him, and you cannot identify with him. When you imprison yourself, you are losing sight of your true identification with me and with the Father. Your identification is with the Father and with the Son. It cannot be one and not the other. If you are part of one, you must be part of the other, because they are one. The Holy Trinity is holy because it is one. If you exclude yourself from this union, you're perceiving the Holy Trinity as separated. You must be included in it because it is everything. Unless you take your place in it and fulfill your function as part of it, the Holy Trinity is as bereft as you are. No part of it can be imprisoned if its truth is to be known. Oh, that was really good. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all jump on. I love to see all of your faces in the afternoon. Great to see all of you guys here. We had some really good discussions leading up to this reading, which of course pertains exactly to what we just read. I love this whole part that we are part of the Son and of the Father, and we can't be part of one and not the other. And I guess I never realized that that is what the Holy Trinity is, right? I guess I never really realized it until I just read this. Like, what is the Holy Trinity? Because I was never raised in any formal type of religion, but it clearly says here the Trinity is myself, my brothers, and God, right? So that's it. It's all part of the oneness of the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, the Father, the Sonship, which includes all of us,
right,
and the Spirit, which connects one to the other.
Right.
And so when we invite the Spirit in through our breath or through our surrender, through our faith, if you will, then we are all one, and the Trinity is actually one thing.
Yeah, I feel like I saw it in a different way though today. I kind of feel like I saw it as me, my brother, and God, and the Spirit is what connects us all. It's like the glue. And it's interesting. I never really saw it like that before. I always thought of it as like, what is the Spirit? What is the, like, I couldn't really, it didn't make sense to me in a way that I could wrap my head around it and embrace it, because it always sounded like some kind of airy-fairy thing that didn't really include me. And I really loved how this kind of was like, it's you and your brother and your Father, and that's the Holy Trinity. And like you said, Mary, when you accept the Christ in your brother, right, which is through the Holy Spirit, knowing that we are all one, that's that other part that makes it holy. I love that.
In the Bible, it talks after the ascension or during that time that the Spirit comes upon the apostles with fire and with really energy and has them follow their passion. It gives them the passion of the connection. It reveals to them the path, and then they can go forth and come from Spirit, which is that connection. So come from their God self back to the world. And that's sort of the interpretation of that. We all take it too literally. It's like, oh, they were fire-breathing dragons, and they, it's like, no, it's the passion, the fire in your belly that leads you forth. But in that case, it's with the right-minded perception, if you will. It's with the Christ mind connection to the all in all.
That's awesome. I was just getting truth bumps as you were talking about that, Mary.
So we're all one. It's me, myself, and I.
Yeah, my Trinity.
That's right.
My Trinity.
Actually, I don't know. I've been reading Don Miguel's latest book, Who Am I? What is Reality? And
I haven't read it yet.
And he's talking about that we're really just whatever that energy seems to come from, that belly in the fire, that sometimes we get that gut feeling of we're sensing something, or when when you get really, when you're about to have an accident, it's almost like a spirit comes right to you. That's that energy. I haven't read the book yet because it's just too intense. I can't only read like a little bit at a time. And sometimes I have to reread it. Even though it's easy reading, it's so involved with the mind, energy, body, spirit, the whole concept that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
About tough books, like he mentioned, I've been reading, and it's not that thick, that book, but I mean, I have to reread the same Rose too many times so I can get the message. It's theosophy from Rudolf Steiner, and on his definition of a spirit, is the realm where we, all of us, came from. And making an analogy in modern days is the internet, how we communicate with each other. When we reach that level of spiritualism, is when we start connecting everything, and the Trinity becomes one. So we have to be some sort of a spiritual, so we can connect to the internet and have access to all the good stuff that is there. I strongly recommend that book, but hopefully you don't take that longer to read it all, because again, the message is so convoluted, so intense, that maybe a couple of pages a day will take you a good thinking 2-3 hours. Just on this.
That's awesome, Alberto. Can everyone who's recommending books, can you put it in the chat so people can get the names and the authors?
Sure.
That would be awesome. And, you know, even that book, I know I've shared it with you a few times, that book I'm reading called Talking with Angels, talks about the fire and how, you know, it's necessary to burn away everything that's not real, right? That the fire is there to clear away the unreal so that you can see what is there. And it's just amazing. I love to hear like all of these great truths that come from all of these different areas, even though we're working on this group and studying in this group, A Course in Miracles, which I love. I feel like this is like the architectural framework, so to speak, Tim.
There you go.
and I feel like, you know, a lot of the other books, you know, are just also referencing the similar framework that we're learning and building here in this course and in this group. Especially, I think the lessons are so powerful. And Tim, that lesson you shared earlier before we started reading, lesson 170, is such a great lesson. So I would encourage everyone also to be doing the lessons as we're doing, you know, as we're reading this book, because the lessons really is where you get the experience, right? You take the lessons and you go through your day and you read the lesson, and then you can actually experience it. And then you have those aha moments where you go, oh, this is what they're talking about. And really that's where the, you know, the peeling of the onion, the undoing has real power. Anybody want to discuss anything we just read, or should we continue reading?
Go for it.
Okay, let's keep going. All right, the undivided will of the sonship. Can you be separated from your identification and be at peace? Dissociation is not a solution. It is a delusion. The delusional believe that truth will assail them, and they do not recognize it because they prefer the delusion. Judging truth as something they do not want, they perceive their illusions, which block knowledge. Help them by offering them your unified mind on their behalf, as I am offering you mine on behalf of yours. Alone we can do nothing, but together our minds fuse into something whose power is far beyond the power of its separate parts. By not being separate, the mind of God is established in ours and as ours. This mind is invincible because it is undivided. The undivided will of the sonship is the perfect creator, being wholly in the likeness of God, whose will it is. You cannot be exempt from it if you are to understand what it is and what you are. By the belief that your will is separate from mine, you are exempting yourself from the will of God, which is yours. Yet to heal is still to make whole. Therefore, to heal is to unite with those who are like you, because perceiving this likeness is to recognize the Father. If your perfection is in him and only in him, how can you know it without recognizing him? The recognition of God is the recognition of yourself. There is no separation of God and his creation. You will realize this when you understand that there is no separation between your will and mine. Let the love of God shine upon you by your acceptance of me. My reality is yours and his. By joining your mind with mine, you are signifying your awareness that the will of God is one. God's oneness and ours are not separate because his oneness encompasses ours. To join with me is to restore his power to you because we are sharing it. I offer you only the recognition of his power in you, but in that lies all truth. As we unite with him. Glory be to the union of God and his holy sons. All glory lies in them because they are united. The miracles we do bear witness to, the will of the Father for his Son, and to our joy in uniting with his will for us. When you unite with me, you are uniting without the ego, because I have renounced the ego in myself, and therefore cannot unite with yours. Our union is therefore the way to renounce the ego in you. The truth in both of us is beyond the ego. Our success in transcending the ego is guaranteed by God. And I share this confidence for both of us and all of us. I bring God's peace back to all his children because I received it of him for us all. Nothing can prevail against our united wills because nothing can prevail against God's. Would you know the will of God for you? Ask it of me, who know it for you, and you will find it. I will deny you nothing, as God denies me nothing. Ours is simply the journey back to God, who is our home. Whenever fear intrudes anywhere along the road to peace, it is because the ego has attempted to join the journey with us and cannot do so. Sensing defeat and angered by it, the ego regards itself as rejected and becomes retaliative. You are invulnerable to its retaliation because I am with you. On this journey, you have chosen me as your companion instead of the ego. Do not attempt to hold on to both, or you will try to go in different directions and will lose the way. The ego's way is not mine, but it is also not yours. The Holy Spirit has one direction for all minds, and the one he taught me is yours. Let's not lose sight of his direction through illusions, for only illusions of another direction can obscure the one for which God's voice speaks in all of us. Never accord the ego the power to interfere with the journey. It has none, because the journey is the way to what is true. Leave all illusions behind and reach beyond all attempts of the ego to hold you back. I go before you, because I am beyond the ego. Reach therefore for my hand, because you want to transcend the ego. My strength will never be wanting. And if you choose to share it, you will do so. I give it willingly and gladly because I need you as much as you need me. Ooh, there's truth bumps again. Love that. I need you as much as you need me. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, his last sentence really, I mean, he just admits it, that we're all one, and why would we ever not want to be one? I mean, for those that have experienced those moments, those hours, whatever, and yet every day I leave, every day, and then I come back, and then I leave. And why do I do that? You know, why do I have this investment in ego still? Well, you know, that question can't be answered. I just have to stop investing in a bank account that siphons off all of my energy. So, yeah, anyway.
I think one of the greatest takeaways from the first section we read was the way you get that connection is by sharing it, right? I mean, I feel like sometimes we're like, oh, I want to have that connection. I want to have that connection. I need that connection. And we forget that the way to have that connection is to share it. It's kind of like to have peace, teach peace, right? So to have that connection with that one mind of God, share that connection with others, right? And then you just have it.
But I think, Terry, what comes up for me, and that was real good that you said that there is he talks about it many, many times, our invulnerability, but the ego is extremely vulnerable. And that's why there's this myriad amount of defenses and blames and projections and da, 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 da. So it's seeing beyond the ego, being willing to give up what has no value for something that has all value. And us that have experienced that know that in reaching somebody, yeah, you're right. The only way, I guess, to reach somebody who doesn't have that connection would be to become vulnerable, but in being vulnerable, you really are invulnerable. You know what I mean? I mean, you're vulnerable in spirit, which is invulnerable. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
I think too,
Yeah,
when you
kind
get
of
in those,
like what you resist. I'm sorry.
go ahead, Mary, go ahead.
I got to say, what you resist persists. So if you are pushing away the world, and that's how you feel like you can get to spirit-centered self, it doesn't usually work, and you're only able to do it in small glimpses because pushing it away is making it real. And therefore, it's always there for you to have that dance of opposites. You're pushing, it's coming back. You're pushing, it's coming back. The way of peace, if you will, or of joy, is to just set an intention that you are going to develop faith, whatever that means to you, and live in the connection that is offered with spirit, or unblock the resistance to it, rather than sort of fighting against it. When they say in the Bible that you give up all your earthly possessions and follow me,
mm-hmm.
in a sense, if it's done the opposite way, if you follow, then it's so easy. You don't even care about your quote unquote earthly possessions. It doesn't, the connection is to God instead of to your earthly things. And so then it all becomes simple and God does the work. Whereas the other way, if we're constantly, oh, I've got to let go of money, now I've got to let go of my house, now I've got to let go of how I think, now I've got to, oh my God, I can't do this. It's like, it's insurmountable, but we move the mountain as soon as we shift our intention and our faith and our perspective.
Yeah, good point, Mary. And just to add to that, I would say that when you are at that place of thinking that you need to share something with someone else because they are lacking, you've already aligned with fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've already seen them as not perfect and whole and complete, which means that you're seeing yourself as not perfect and whole and complete. So it's always an inside job, no matter how you slice it. Anytime you perceive a lack in someone else, it's in you. And so, when you can go inside and say, okay, how can I love myself more? How can I accept that oneness and that power of being that one joint will of God and love and peace? And then shine that out so that you can share it with others from a place of, I am whole and so are you. There's the real work to be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking for myself. I know I said we and you, but I mean, I'm speaking for myself because I'm also, you know, I'll go through days, and Pam and I were, while we're talking about that earlier, that, you know, as empaths, we have a tendency to absorb others' energy, and instead of observing it. And as soon as we absorb that negative energy, then we've united with the ego, and we've united with fear. So in order to not absorb the negative energy, we have to do that self-care work, and that, you know, those daily intentions of I am God, I am love, I am, you know, I am united with that one mind of God. And then we can go out and, you know, observe and share and be able to transform the energy from that place of being love and being whole and being of that one mind.
Yeah, good.
And I went back to the word we, but I meant to say I, because it's something that I'm working on too every day. When I feel that I'm getting, you know, rocked by those negative thoughts, those negative emotions, you know, maybe somebody's slurring something negative, and all of a sudden the energy comes at me, and I'm like, ugh. You know, I have to be like, whoa, I can observe this and not absorb it. And I can understand that this is part of my task, is to be love in this moment, and to, you know, be able to just
Mhm.
share that love in a place of oneness.
That's the steps that need to be taken. You know, when that happens, being able to observe. If you're feeling that, if you're observing the fact that, wait a minute, I shouldn't be. I mean, why am I letting this get to me? As soon as you observe it, then you have now tools to be able to say, okay, this is not true. That is not truth. You know, whatever way can get you out of there without trying to acknowledge it. And because you acknowledge it, that anger stays. You know, it happens continuously. I mean, you're so right. I mean, this morning it happened to me like right away. So in a moment that I was involved in, you know, I was like, whoa. But I don't say anything now. I just stay quiet. I kind of walk away from the situation, you know, and say, you know what, definitely not need to be in this situation. You know, whichever it takes to get out of that immediately and go into that peaceful state. But it's a working process for us, I guess. You know, that's why we still study the course. That's why we read all this stuff and share it with groups.
Right. And,
Yeah.
you know, this one section that we just read was all about how we don't have to do it alone, right? Because we have the Holy Spirit, right, that is speaking to us, that is with us all the time. We just have to accept it completely and be willing to embrace it as, the cat is walking in front of me, as, you know, as the power that is us, and the thing that unites us to the sonship and to God.
I feel like I'm having a full circle moment here, because like when I was a kid, I was very, very tenderhearted. I was very artistic, very emotional, and that was not an environment that was really well supported. And it's very complex because it wasn't like blatant emotional abuse, but it was kind of neglect, and there wasn't an area for me to foster that. So kind of, I mean, Tim was speaking earlier, and it brings up a lot for me because I went the traditional mean girls route in like middle school without knowing it. I had to put up walls of protection because anytime I was vulnerable as a kid, I was degraded for it. So I was then taught that I needed to be harder shelled and less open so that I was then accepted. And I carried that with me into adulthood. And through the process of getting to know myself and awareness and this course and stuff, I have a hard time because I vacillate between accepting my authenticity as a child and healing her, but then also the deflection of my ego, which then points to everything outside of me and said, how dare you do this to a child? And you create this environment continuously ongoing. My child is also screaming in the background now too, by the way. But I had a lot of anger towards the group collective in the sense of how did we get to this culture and environment? And then you think about it, we obviously haven't always been here. We come from a history of indigenous people that relied on the land and community and used all the resources. And unfortunately, I get goosebumps because it was us white colonizers that we effed a lot of that up, unfortunately, because we went through this mentality of single individualness. And that's when you look at this idea of religion and organized thought. And I wrote in next to one of the sections, guilt, because this full circle moment I'm having is, I once read on the woo-hooey spectrum side of things, is that you can never have world peace. It's never going to happen. We feel guilt because of the separation from God, and that's a subconscious thing we run on. But the reason we'll never have peace, the reason that not everybody will always get it, is because this reality is a dense one. This planet, this experience, we come here, we choose to, so we learn this low level emotion so we can really feel that joy when we go home. But this duality has to exist. If everybody had world peace, then this is the weird thing. The earth would not exist anymore because it wouldn't have the bad and the good to counteract one another. So it sucks because it's like, great, we won't always all be, you know, white lights of being here on this physical plane, but that's the experience, and teaching our brotherhood about it.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that in terms of the illusion that is this earth, because even the Course in Miracles says, you know, when you accept at one mint, there's no need for this world anymore. But then heaven becomes something different, right? Heaven on earth becomes a different experience. And the ego would want to trick you into saying, well, you know, you don't want to get rid of this world. So why do you want to be peaceful? Don't do that. You know, stay here and be miserable so that we can keep this illusion going, because it's so much fun. You know?
Yeah, like mixing up cause and effect, that
Right?
the world is not the cause of our problems. So
Right.
if we don't worry about world peace, if we worry about our own inner peace, then that will manifest that world peace. And when we're all in that place of peace, whatever happens, happens. And we'll be peaceful and enjoying that. So it's your mind gets caught up in all these things of, and what if this, and what if that, and what if, and we're so sucked into that illusion that what happens outside is what's the cause of our emotional, usually distress inside. But we have the opportunity to flip that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Good point. All right, any more discussion, or shall we continue? Good discussions, by the way. This is really great today. I love all of these discussions that we're having.
I was just going to say one thing. Because I was having this discussion with my husband this morning. I can't remember what difficulty I was probably having, but I said, I hope I get over this. Oh, I know, I heard about the news. It was something environmental that didn't sound good. And I thought, man, I hope I don't have to come back here for that. But now that what Mary just said, you know, or heaven on earth, we experience peace no matter what. So I got to let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pam, you just brought up, you know, I was raised Baptist and I went Methodist and back to Baptist and finally was done with it when I was 19. So I had quite an indoctrination, but it would, you know, there was a line in the Bible that said, you know, let the dead bury their dead. And I always struggled with that. Oh, how can that's like uncaring. What does he mean? And well, the industry, you know, my coming to that was to see my own indestructibility, my own invulnerability, if you will. The bodies are just something that we created. We did this double-blind. This place is like a double-blind experience where we've created bodies and we've created egos. And the ego looks to the body, you know, I gotta be lifting weights and looking good, get a good tan, eat right, exercise, you know, all that stuff. you know, how are you feeling today? You think about your body. Well, that's not how I'm feeling at all. I'm in spirit. So, you know, to get back to the point is, yeah, I was also listening to that stuff about, you know, we may be beyond the tipping point with global warming, and this may become the new reality for the planet for God knows, well, I won't say God knows how long. God doesn't know this. God doesn't stoop down to our ego level, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I was also being, oh God, what can we do? Should I get a solar thing? You know, it's like, oh my God, here we are. We're literally like we've got this bucket of water with a lot of mud in it, and we're trying to wash the mud off of our hands. We cannot be clean and be immersed in the world is what I'm trying to say. So
Well, I'm going to put in a quick footnote because I know what you're all talking about because I put the same news. However, the first thing I thought about was, if everyone remembers at the beginning of the pandemic, it took 2 weeks for the air to clear and we see mountains. We were,
oh, that's right, Ernesto.
remember that?
Yeah.
But everything in 2 weeks. That happened in 2 weeks. And they were still driving and there were still some airplanes. But the drastic change,
Yeah,
it recovered quickly.
you're right. I forgot about
I
that.
thought about it. I said, oh, wait a minute. People have forgotten what happened already. How we saw it. We saw it. I mean, everybody, you know, the water's clear, all of a sudden there were jellyfish in Venice. I mean, it was a remarkable thing that happened so quick. That's how quick the earth can recover. That's how I put it in my head and said, okay,
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
It's so funny that you bring that up as an analogy too, because I think of that as the analogy of when we say, oh, we want to see peace in the world, and all it takes is a decision for us to be peace, right? So
Yeah.
quick. If we say we want there to be peace, then be peace, right? Because to have peace, you have to be peace and teach peace, and then there's peace. It's quick. It takes that decision, that complete decision. Like Ernesto was saying, 2 weeks it happened because, you know, and that wasn't even completely like that completely was everybody like not polluting the world. But if we stop polluting our mind with the ego, it's that quick. But we can't have 1 foot in the ego and 1 foot in love. You have to have both feet in love, both feet with the Holy Spirit, with that at one ment.
Yeah.
And that's what we're learning, right?
Hmm.
All right. Great talk, everyone. This is great discussions. Let's go ahead and continue the treasure of God. Okay. We are the joint will of the sonship, whose wholeness is for all. We begin the journey back by setting out together and gather in our brothers as we continue together. Every gain in our strength is offered for all, so they too can lay aside their weakness and add their strength to us. God's welcome waits for us all, and he will welcome us as I am welcoming you. Forget not the kingdom of God, for anything the world has to offer. The world can add nothing to the power and the glory of God and his holy sons, but it can blind the sons to the Father if they behold it. You cannot behold the world and know God. Only one is true. I am come to tell you that the choice of which is true is not yours to make. If it were, you would have destroyed yourself. Yet God did not will the destruction of his creations, having created them for eternity. His will has saved you, not from yourself, but from your illusion of yourself. He has saved you for yourself. Let us glorify him whom the world denies, for over his kingdom, the world has no power. No one created by God can find joy in anything except the eternal, not because he is deprived of anything else, but because nothing else is worthy of him. What God and his sons create is eternal, and in this and this only is their joy. Listen to the story of the prodigal son and learn what God's treasure is and yours. This son of a loving father left his home and thought he had squandered everything for nothing of any value, although he had not understood its worthlessness at the time. He was ashamed to return to his father because he thought he had hurt him. Yet when he came home, the father welcomed him with joy because the son himself was his father's treasure. He wanted nothing else. God wants only his son because his son is his only treasure. You want your creations as he wants his. Your creations are your gift to the Holy Trinity, created in gratitude for your creation. They do not leave you any more than you left your creator, but they extend your creation as God extended himself to you. Can the creations of God himself take joy in what is not real? And what is real except the creations of God and those that are created like his? Your creations love you as you love your Father for the gift of creation. There is no other gift that is eternal, and therefore there is no other gift that is true. How then can you accept anything else or give anything else and expect joy in return? And what else but joy would you want? You made neither yourself nor your function. You made only the decision to be unworthy of both. Yet you cannot make yourself unworthy because you are the treasure of God, and what he values is valuable. There can be no question of its worth because its value lies in God's sharing himself with it and establishing its value forever. Your function is to add to God's treasure by creating yours. His will to you is his will for you. He would not withhold creation from you because his joy is in it. You cannot find joy except as God does. His joy lay in creating you, and he extends his fatherhood to you so that you can extend yourself as he did. You do not understand this because you do not understand him. No one who does not accept his function can understand what it is, and no one can accept his function unless he knows what he is. Creation is the will of God. His will created you to create. Your will was not created separate from his, and so you must will as he wills. An unwilling will does not mean anything because a contradiction in terms that actually means nothing. When you think you are unwilling to will with God, you are not thinking. God's will is thought. It cannot be contradicted by thought. God does not contradict himself, and his sons, who are like him, cannot contradict themselves or him. Yet their thought is so powerful that they can even imprison the mind of God's Son if they so choose. This choice does make the Son's function unknown to him, but never to his Creator. And because it is not unknown to his Creator, it is forever knowable to him. There is no question but one you should ever ask of yourself. Do I want to know my Father's will for me? He will not hide it. He has revealed it to me because I asked it of him and learned of what he had already given. Our function is to work together because apart from each other, we cannot function at all. The whole power of God's Son lies in all of us, but not in any of us alone. God would not have us be alone because he does not want to be alone. That is why he created his Son and gave him the power to create with him. Our creations are as holy as we are, and we are the sons of God himself, as holy as he is. Through our creations, we extend our love and thus increase the joy of the Holy Trinity. You do not understand this because you who are God's own treasure do not regard yourself as valuable. Given this belief, you cannot understand anything. I share with God the knowledge of the value He puts upon you. My devotion to you is of Him, being born of my knowledge of myself and Him. We cannot be separated. Whom God has joined cannot be separated. And God has joined all His sons with Himself. Can you be separated from your life and your being? The journey to God is merely the reawakening of the knowledge of where you are always and what you are forever. It is a journey without distance to a goal that has never changed. Truth can only be experienced. It cannot be described and it cannot be explained. I can make you aware of the conditions of truth, but the experience is of God. Together, we can meet its conditions, but truth will dawn upon you of itself. What God has willed for you is yours. He has given His will to His treasure, whose treasure it is. Your heart lies where your treasure is, as His does. You who are beloved of God are wholly blessed. Learn this of me and free the holy will of all those who are as blessed as you are. Says it over and over and over and over again in hundreds of different ways,
Yes.
but all the same.
Yeah, I've often called it the 10,000 faceted diamond, but it's probably more like 1,000,000 facets. It's the same diamond. Yeah.
I love how the one part says, if I can find it. There is no question but one you should ever ask of yourself. Do I want to know my Father's will for me? He will not hide it. He has revealed it to me because I asked it of Him. So that's the question, right? Do I want to know my Father's will for me? And apparently that's the question that Jesus asked that allowed the Christ to make itself manifest.
It just occurred to me that would be a great question. The first thing we wake up every morning.
What is your
Do I
will?
want to know my Father's will for me?
Right. That is a great question. Every morning, all day.
Set the tone right away instead of projects. Oh boy.
Yeah, and I love the imagery that just happened, Tim, when you mentioned the diamond, because in appreciating all those facets, each facet shining a different piece of light or life, if you will, into something, and then the whole is brilliant.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily see all those individuations, all those facets, but each one contributes to the brilliance of the whole, and that's who we are and how we are in God. Each one of our individuations contributes to that brilliance, and so we can respect each one of us and appreciate, and we can appreciate the whole world that way, because there's no longer good and bad. Each experience has that purpose of contributing to the whole. And once we get that, the shift is easy.
Very nice. Thank you.
I love that.
Wow.
I really dig the statement, His will has saved you, not from yourself, but from your illusions of yourself. He has saved you for yourself. I got a little tight in my chest as we were reading this, because I'm like, this is what I need to be reading to my daughter as a bedtime story every night. Because, as much as we try, my husband is the perfect father figure for my child. I lucked out so much with her and him together. But try as we might as parents, we don't love our children unconditionally. We don't love anybody unconditionally. We're just in these human forms, we can't. And it bothers me because I saw this in a post in another ACIM group where somebody said, how do you protect your children from these illusions if you're aware and you're trying to raise conscious children? And the answer was you can't. You just simply can't. You can try your best and you can educate, but your children will be exposed to conditions. And so it breaks your heart at the same time, but you're doing the best you can by being here and being present and learning and sharing it with them. So it's going to have to read her that every night.
Yeah. I think there is a Course in Miracles book for children. I read it to my children when they were younger, but I couldn't really wrap my head around it. There were a lot of animals and things, and it was interesting, but I read it a little bit, and for some reason it just wasn't resonating with me the way I thought it could. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I've been facilitating and teaching this since I was pregnant with my son. So my daughter was 1.5 years. And, you know, and I've always tried to, you know, do my best to explain the different facets of, you know, the world, the illusion, love, forgiveness, and all of that. And, you know, it's an interesting paradigm. I even remember saying, you know, someday I'm going to write good children's books because they need to be written, and I'll probably still do that at some point. But yeah, it's just sharing that love, right? And sharing that and allowing your children to walk the path, right? That's as a mother, gosh, you know, I just had to write this thing for my daughter's wedding. We're getting ready to go to Italy in a few weeks, and she's getting married on September 4th. And one of the people they're making a book for my daughter and son-in-law. And, you know, I described it, I did, you know, share something. And I said, it's like, I didn't realize when I gave birth to my daughter that I was giving birth to my heart, and it was walking around in someone else's body, and it was still connected to my heart. You know, and you know, when they're young and they're with you, you have somewhat of a control of like what they are experiencing. But then when they go, it's like that heart is still connected to you, but it's like walking around out there and doing all these things, and you're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing to my heart? But it's just one of those things where I think Kahlil Gibran in his poem about children says it the best. And I know I've shared that so many times, but it's just so true. Our children are not our children. Their life's longing for itself. You know, they come from us, but they are not of us. And, you know, we try to teach them things, but we can't try to make them like us because they live in the house of tomorrow, which we cannot visit, not even in our dreams. So our whole purpose is just to be the bow, right? And to bend so that the arrow can fly far and swift. And, you know, being a parent I kind of like look at it like, I'm creating and I'm giving this love and I'm putting it in this illusory body that's walking around. And it's what?
Wow. I really love that. I was like, my heart was singing and jumping up and down when you said that. It was just like, wow, that's great imagery. But I wanted to say, or to add to that a little bit, we are totally willing to look at things that we consider normal in the world. You know, we allow our kids to fall as they stand and get their balance and try to walk. Yeah, we try to do our best to move pointy objects or hard objects out of their way. But we do recognize that we have to let them fall a few times. We send them off on a bicycle, and we might have training wheels. But again, we know they're going to have to get their cuts and scrapes and bruises. We accept those things about life, yet we don't look to spirit to have that kind of faith in the other experiences, in their path. And it's not, when we are in spirit, we will know what is right action, and what is ours to do, but we also clearly recognize what is theirs to do. Just like getting their balance and walking is their task. We cannot do it for them. And so we're able to see really clearly in the scope of things, like what things they may have to endure as their choice of their path. And it might break our hearts a little bit, but on the other hand, it's thy will be done. And that's where they will get their wisdom from to make their connections.
All true.
Yeah.
And in truth, they are us. We are one. There is no separation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, anybody else have any last shares before we conclude today's
Oh,
episode of A Course in Miracles?
we're out of time.
I know it always goes so quickly. And just as a reminder, I do start at 12 o'clock, and I know a few of you jumped on early, and we always have such good discussions. And I used to record them, but I don't record them anymore. So it's a good time to share freely and to just, talk a little bit. And if you've got something going on, or if you, just want to get on early and grab a cup of coffee with us, we're here a half an hour early, and we always have really great discussions. So it's always wonderful to see all of you. So thank you for joining, as always.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Ciao.
Thanks, everybody.
My
See you next week.
extinction.